is a presentation of the Match Talk Podcast Network. It's time for Inside Virginia Tech Wrestling. We'll talk all things Hokie wrestling with Coach Kevin Dresser and his staff. Now, let's join your host, three-time National Wrestling Writer and Broadcaster of the Year, Jason Bryant.
Welcome back to another episode of Inside Virginia Tech Wrestling. Jason Bryant here with you with head coach Kevin Dresser as the Hokies coming off an up-and-down performance at the Las Vegas Cliff Keen Invitational. That's actually the Cliff Keen Las Vegas Invitational. Over 30 years that tournament's been going on out there. And Coach Dresser, I open it by saying it's an up-and-down weekend. Is that how you might classify it?
Yeah, that's very accurate. I think anytime you go to the NCAA tournament's an up-and-down tournament. If you qualify 8 guys, in a perfect world, everybody wrestles to their seed or above their seed, and then that's a perfect world. But that doesn't happen, and Vegas is the same way. Anytime you have an individual tournament, it's not a perfect world, but it's a learning experience, and that's why we go. And it sets a baseline for what we need to do as a team and what we need to do as individuals. So that's accurate.
And for the fans to understand that, I say that the Cliff Keen closely resembles the NCAA tournament more than any other tournament we have, because the Southern Scuffle, you will have red shirts, you will have non-scoring wrestlers, and at the Midlands, you'll also have unattached, sometimes postgraduates. So you're only going to get one wrestler per team at the Cliff Keen. Granted, you do have Division II and some junior colleges mixed in there, but overall the competition looked good. The team race was fun, even with Ohio State missing some big guns and the Hokies. You sat a couple guys. Let's just go into why Dennis Gustafson and Zach Epperly didn't get to go.
Well, Dennis was a little banged up. He's back on the mat now. He got a little banged up in the middle of that Missouri match, and so if we would have really needed to have him, we could have got him ready to go. Zach Epperly went off and got engaged on us, and he had a plan a long time ago, and he communicated that plan to me, and it was important for him to do that. And I know that kind of probably sounds weird to the wrestling world, but sometimes you have to be a little bit unorthodox. I can tell you this about Zach Epperly is he's been on board. Everybody knows he struggled a little bit last year just with a lot of things, school and maybe motivation, and just being able to defend all he accomplished as a freshman was probably a little overwhelming with him at first, but I don't see any of that this year. He has done a great job in the room. He's lights out. He's competed really darn well. I mean, let's face it, you got the UNI guy threw a lot at him, but I think we're starting to see how good that UNI guy was. So, I think Zach Epperly is on pace to have a spectacular year, and so you know what? He's got a girl that's pretty special, and he's pretty tight with her, and I guess this is something he wanted to do, and he didn't tell me exactly what he had to do, but he said it was important for him, and obviously I found out. He probably figured I had a big mouth, that if he told me, I might tell somebody else, and so he wanted to make it a 100% surprise. It was, because it surprised all of us, but not knowing the relationship him and his girl have. So I'm happy for them. So that's kind of a non-wrestling answer, but it's an answer.
Well, what's interesting, though, is I saw the engagement. I didn't realize that was kind of the culprit on why. But when you've been in your career, your career at Iowa and your college coaching career, how many times you've run across wrestlers that they're getting engaged, they're getting married? I mean, Bo Jordan at Ohio State, he's got 2 kids. I think his wife just had the second kid any day now. But I mean, how common is that, and how difficult is that, or what challenges does that present to a coach when you have an athlete who's engaged or married?
I think for I would say most guys that have been in that situation would probably say it was much more of a positive than a negative, because I think in those situations it creates, more routine and stability, and, you're not going out with the guys. And let's face it, if you got, most people that are married or engaged aren't out, Friday and Saturday nights in the off season, and even when there's breaks. So I would think that, it's probably now. I'm not encouraging the rest of my guys to run out and get engaged right now by saying that, but I do think that there's instances where it's a plus and a positive. I know I was already gone, but I know Lincoln McElravy got married when he was very young in his career at Iowa, and he did pretty darn good. And I'm sure there's other examples of guys out there that have done that. So yeah, it's not normal, but hey, wrestlers, we're not normal, so it just fits right there.
Yeah, I can attest to the whole, like, once you get married, your Friday and Saturdays are pretty, well, my Friday and Saturdays are pretty much done because of wrestling anyway. And now when you get kids, your weekends are really toast. When you have a free weekend, you don't have a free weekend because you're basically making up for it. I think a lot of our married listeners will understand exactly what we're talking about there.
Well, I think kids add a whole new dynamic because now it starts to affect sleep. And then let's face it, high-level athletes, their sleep needs to be more regulated, and it's part of their training. I mean, it's just like lifting weights. If you don't sleep the right time and the right amount, it's like not being able to lift weights or not being able to eat the right food. So I think that would really be a challenge. So, being married is one thing, but then being married and trying to take care of babies, oh my gosh, I can't imagine trying to do that, but I know there's people that do that.
So the memo to Zach is hold off on the kids until after your senior year.
Yeah, and I don't even know if they've got a date set right now. I don't think they've got a date set, so, but definitely and I'm sure both sides of the family probably be in the same boat there, same side of the fence there. Let's wait a while on that one.
Yeah, enough on the family stuff. Although I'm talking about the sleep right now. I can hear it. It's cold in Minnesota. Our furnace just went out. Go figure. That's going to get fixed after we finish up this episode. And then I've got a 4-year-old and a 4-month-old. So both of them having various issues with sleep. So sleep doesn't really happen. I have to tell this to Mr. Epperly. Once you have kids, sleep goes away for a long time. I'm sure you can fill them in there. Now, as we move forward to the tournament itself, Joey Dance picked up a title. A strong effort on the first day. Hokies put, I believe, 6 wrestlers into the semifinal round. But when we look at the victory, Joey Dance had to get that late takedown to beat a tough freshman, Jose Rodriguez. That's the only title. And even with the championship at an event like Las Vegas, it seems to me that Hokie Nation can't really be super happy with the way that match ended and the way that performance finished up.
No, good job for winning a tournament, but that's not the product that's going to get him what he wants. And if he wants to win a title, and he wants to win a title, there has to be much more separation. There has to be much more effort. You can't let it come down to a controversial call. And I'll be the first to say that I don't know if I was a ref, if I would have given 2 there, and he was my guy, But the year before, we lost a match to a different Ohio State guy, and I felt like we got a bad call. And this year, I think we got a good call. So I guess that's karma or evens out. But the fact of the matter is that we're making progress there, and Joey's work ethic and his attitude and all the things that you need to win are in place. Now we just have to have more. We have to have more of a sense of urgency to get, if you look at the last 45 seconds of that match, you have a pretty high sense of urgency to get a takedown, and you got a takedown. The first, I'm not sure the first 4 or 5 minutes, that sense of urgency was quite as high, and so there's got to be a separation there. I mean, you got a guy like Ty Walls who's, let's face it, based on his results, he separated himself from probably 90% of the nation right now. That's what Joey's got to get to. He's got to get to the point where he doesn't, have to be tech balling guys, but, because he's got such great defense, he's got to get to the point where he's beating guys 6-2, 7-3, stuff like that. And now you don't wait for a bad call, or you don't have to worry about a bad call, or somebody slipping on the mat, or something goofy happening. So yeah, he won a tournament, pretty good tournament, but not the way we need to win if we want to be the guy at the end.
When was the last time you saw a leg cradle?
I used to leg cradle a lot of guys when I was a high school coach. So that's at least 12 years ago.
Yeah, my roommate hit a bunch of them.
I had some pretty good high school guys, so I don't think I could even leg cradle that. No. I don't know when it's been a while since I've seen a leg cradle now. He almost was a victim of one.
Yeah, my roommate hit a bunch of them in college, and then I remember seeing one at the D3 tournament a couple years ago, and I screamed, leg cradle! It's just one of those things that if you've seen it before, and you can anticipate it coming, but if you've never seen one, like at a high-level match, and it just kind of like, what the heck is that? I remember, what was it, Josh Moore? that had Johnny Thompson in a leg cradle at Nationals one year, and nobody knew they didn't know how to call it right. I'm like, that's a freaking leg cradle. That's near fall, and they stalemated it. And it was like that. I think it was in St. Louis in 2003. I remember that, but I was like, oh man. But anyway, enough about that. Moving forward, you alluded to Ty Walls and separating himself. There's a gap that he's now closed, it appears, with Connor Medbury, who handled him at the All-Star Classic. Now this one went into overtime. What do you like about, even with the loss, what did Ty take away from getting another chance at Connor Medbury?
Well, I like everything about Ty Walls right now. He's a guy that's completely 100% bought in, and he's bought in for a long time. And he trusts our staff. He trusts Coach Zadek. He trusts the coaching staff. He is a guy that, just incrementally has got better. I mean, it's crazy to think how much last year at this time he was an All-American, how much better he is as a one-time All-American than he was a two-time All-American. And he wasn't bad last year at this time. He'd beaten Adam Kuhn and, won the All-Star match last year and kind of dominated that. But he's incrementally better right now just because he comes every day. And, what you see out there, he kind of dominated everybody. There was a couple, questionable calls in the Arizona State match, but he dominated that match more so than he ever did last year. And he wrestled that kid twice last year. And then Connor Medbury is a stud. I mean, he's a guy that if he continues to wrestle, he's going to be a guy that's going to be wrestled for medals. And so we're right there. I mean, Ty knows he's right there, and he's excited to wrestle that guy again and again and again. And that match could have went either way.
Yeah, you're watching the finals. It looked like there was that. Of course, with wrestlers when they lose, there was that look of dejection as soon as you give up the final takedown. What was said to Ty after the match, and what did he say to the staff?
Well, I can tell you this, and it was unanimous across the board with the staff. That's the way you put it out there, win or lose. That was my favorite match of the whole tournament. We lost it. Obviously Zavatsky's match was pretty special, but this match, because he wrestled the whole time, and that's what we preach, at least. And I would think a lot of coaches preach is that, he was in it the whole time. He was wrestling, whether he was riding or whether he was trying to escape or whether he was on his feet. He wrestled the whole time, and so we just got to keep doing what he's doing. And he figured out a couple things. He came off the mat, said, I learned this, I learned that. He's just a student of the sport. I mean, it's important to him. He wakes up every day wanting to be the guy. And when you have that, it's not hard to go to work. And he goes to work every day, and he's, obviously I'm, talking a lot about him, but he's the poster boy for the Hokies right now.
Well, you alluded to Zach Zavatsky's special match. It's like you're leading the conversation without actually having anything scripted in front of you. But Zach Zavatsky ran into the buzzsaw that is Gabe Dean, who is on another level. Actually, had tweeted that performances like that are illegal in probably 48 states. But prior to that finals match, getting the win over Miles Martin, returning national champion from Ohio State, coming up from 174, you don't get that many opportunities in college wrestling to pick up a win over a national champion. And Zach Zavatsky is one of those guys. Now, that's always going to be on his resume. Even with the loss to Dean, what did this performance do, the win over Miles Martin, do for, what do you think it's going to do for Zach Zavatsky's confidence?
I think I could see a difference in him already, and he's a big guy about confidence, and that's just a little bit of I don't want to say an immaturity thing, but a being a young guy, and that you let things like that, good or bad, affect you. Now, it's okay to let the good things propel you forward and upward, but you can't let the bad things drag you down. It's kind of like being that guy that's a star basketball player. If you miss 5 shots, you have no confidence. You quit shooting, or you just can't make any more. You can't have that in wrestling. If you have one or two bad things happen out there, you just got to be able to wrestle through them. And that was the first time all year that I really saw Zavatsky just really be engaged for 7 minutes against a good guy. And so he's, I think he's just trying to figure out how to, he's not probably used to being favored when he steps out there most of the time. So probably wrestling a guy like Martin took the pressure off him a little bit, so he let it fly a little bit more. And if you saw that one scramble where he split the legs and came out and scored, that shows you what he's got. And we hadn't seen a lot of that this year, where he just kind of lets it fly. And when he does that, wow, he's hard to beat, because I'm telling you, Miles Martin is impressive. So I'll be, if you would ask me before that match if he was going to win that match, just based on what I'd kind of seen, I would have probably said no. But as the match unfolded, I'm like, gosh, this guy thinks he can win this match. And so, yeah, we got to keep doing that. We got to keep fighting and wrestling for 7 minutes. And, I don't think he did that in the finals. I think he took a backseat to that guy way too early. And I think he would say the same thing. And not taking away from Gabe Dean because he is a stud, but you can't, that wasn't the performance that he wants or we want wrestling a quality guy.
So you think that situation was probably more mental in saying, okay, this guy's number one for a reason. I probably shouldn't be in this match. I mean, what's the adjustment to make? I mean, short of bringing maybe a weapon or a bat to the next match.
Well, that's the adjustment right there. That's the mentality you have to have is that it's a fist fight. You can't go punch him because it's illegal, but everything you do has to be hard and has to be a fight. And there wasn't nearly enough toughness. And let's face it, when you wrestle a guy that good, you gotta be ready to step out there and go. So there's got to be an extreme amount of toughness built up in you. And we just weren't ready to fight when we went out there. And not saying that we could have wrestled a perfect match and lost by, I don't know, but I can tell you this is that I don't think the guy was 15 points better than Zach Sabatsky, but Zach let him beat him that bad to a certain degree. So.
Another match that was lopsided on the score, 2 All-Americans. Jared Haught lost to Brett Favre of Minnesota. Favre, notoriously good for his top work and his ability to turn with those tilts, using that length and leverage to his advantage. What do you got to do next time these two guys meet? Because Jared had a pretty solid tournament and then runs into a guy that just matchup-wise seemed to know the tricks and how to pick up points quickly.
Well, same thing. There's not enough fight, not enough toughness in that situation. And, if you're gonna wrestle a guy like that, and we knew that guy's quality. I mean, we're talking about wrestling the top 2 guys in the United States just about. I mean, obviously the Missouri guy's pretty good at 197, but Favre's the second-ranked guy for a reason. And those guys that are ranked first or second, there has to be an extreme amount of toughness when you step out there, not just wrestling skills and moves. There's got to be an extreme amount of toughness to fight, and we didn't have that in either place in that round. And we had a good, and the other matches, obviously we had a good tournament, but you got to bring it. It's I always say it's an organized street fight / fist fight with rules, and that wasn't the case in either one of those. So it's a learning experience. We got to learn from it. That's why we went.
Some of those fist fights involve not literal fist fights, but when we talk in close matches, every match is a fight. You fight for every point. Sal Mastriani and Solomon Chishko both took losses and then ended up in 6th place with injury defaults. Let's talk about the status of both of those guys, a couple different situations with each.
I thought Sal made progress. I mean, he legitimately tweaked his knee. So he's probably, he's a maybe against West Virginia, but that would be the longest he would be out. So, he tweaked it, and he tweaked it pretty good. But, like I said, it's nothing that's long-term. It's nothing that's going to affect, much of a season at all. But up until that point, I felt like we were making progress, and we kind of saw the Sal Mastriani that we saw all year, with the exception of the Missouri kind of brain fart that he had. But, I thought we made progress. Obviously, we would like to see him go more, but, it is what it is there. So, and then Solomon just didn't have a good weekend. There wasn't enough. He's another guy that that needs to fight more, needs to be. He's sure fun to watch when he goes out and throws on the line, but it's just like we need a cattle prod of that guy. And I'd like to have a cattle prod and just stick it in the back of his singlet, like right before they let him go, and just be able to hit that thing about 4 times a match. Because when he goes, he can go, but we have to figure out a way to get him to go more, because he just didn't have a good weekend, And then the whole thing is he has to you can't relax out there ever. For whatever reason, he likes to find times to relax, and he relaxed on the side of the mat there, and got belly to belly by a real nice upper body move, and got thrown on his head. He wouldn't have relaxed there. He wouldn't have got thrown on his head. And that's a match that he's winning. He did the same thing last year. He relaxed a little bit at Vegas too, and he learned a good lesson from it. He came back and went better from it, and got pinned there last year too to get eliminated, or to place whatever he placed at. I think he might have got 5th or 6th last year as well. So hopefully it's a wake-up call that we got to do more. But as far as his health, he's good to go. He's fine.
Now, talk about the other two guys in the lineup. Dom Latona goes 1-2, as does David Bergita. And looking at Latona, this guy has been thrown to the wolves, and in the way that the matchups have set this year. His two losses in Vegas are the national champion and two-time All-American Nathan Tomasello, and then Earl Hall, a two-time All-American. So kind of tough on the draw there, but any progress with Dom at 133?
Absolutely, a lot of progress. He wasn't penciled in to wrestle this year. This was going to be a red shirt, go to a bunch of open years, and he got thrust into the lineup for various reasons. And, he's a tough kid. He's not a great wrestler yet, but he's a tough kid in that, a lot of kids, especially in this day and age, I'm not a big fan of the culture of kids and how they bow out of things when things get hard. And there's none of that in Dom Latana. The kid came here as a freshman. He hasn't got to go home. He had to stay here over Thanksgiving break. He hasn't got a break to go home. He's been thrust into the lineup. He's wrestled nothing but national champs and All-Americans. He's wrestled the kid from Missouri who's going to be a superstar. And the dude has just been in there fighting hard, working hard, great attitude. For a freshman, it's pretty impressive. And, if he's going to be, that's just who he is. So he's going to be a pretty good wrestler by the time he leaves here. I don't know how good, but he's going to be a pretty good wrestler.
And David Bergita, guy, it's been in and out of the lineup at spot starting 1-2 in Vegas. What do you got here at 165?
Well, we got a guy that fights hard all the time. I got no problem with what's happening at 133 and 165 because they fight hard. And David's not the super skilled wrestler, but you know what? He wins the matches he wins because of toughness, because of staying in there and fight, so he won a match for us, the Wrestlebacks. We'll just have to see what's happening at 65 and 33 and how much our lineup changes in the next month. If it changes, how much it changes, that's still a possibility. So, but in the meantime, I'm not afraid to put David Bergita out there.
See, you're alluding to something I think the Hokie Nation have been trying to get me to prod you for a couple weeks now. If lineup changes, after Vegas, where are you with that possibility? Or is it still going to be that, okay, at what moment do you think if you make a change, when do you think it's going to happen? Would it be pre-Virginia duels, post-Virginia duels, certification, times and minimum weights?
Well, there's a deadline, I think, in early February. So obviously if we do anything, it'll be something in early February, but our changes aren't going to be drastic if they are right now. It doesn't look like it. I think we've seen enough to know that certain guys can handle certain weights. You don't want to put guys out there that aren't ready to go. There might be a slight shift possibly, but I'm going to keep everybody guessing a little bit right now as to how that plays out. But there won't be able to say this. There won't be significant changes.
All right, moving forward, the next Hokie competition is in Parkersburg, West Virginia, taking on West Virginia. This is something that Hokie faithful, regardless of sport, they get up for. It's taking on West Virginia in anything. I remember back in the Michael Vick era of Virginia Tech football, watching that tremendous West Virginia Tech game where Shane Graham kicks the game-winning field goal, and that was just like, it was so indicative of the Virginia Tech West Virginia rivalry across all the sports. And Sammy Henson's team looks to be a little down. They've got a lot of talent in that room. And then Jared Hawk goes basically, going back to his hometown and gets to face a guy, Jake Smith, nationally ranked. There's a lot of different aspects in play here, a lot of storylines, if you will. And, how do you get up for this duel coming in after a tournament like Vegas?
Well, if you're going to be great, there has to be consistency. And so there has to be improvement, of course, but there has to be consistency. So we have to just approach this one just like we do the first round of Vegas, or just like we did the finals of Vegas, or just like we're going to do the first round of the NCAA tournament. When it's time to compete and we let you out of the cage, you got to go. And so that's what we're prepared to do right now. We're just starting exams, start tomorrow. So our training schedule is a little bit fragmented, but we're training every day. And West Virginia is no different than if we're going to wrestle Oklahoma State or Penn State. Yeah, I'm sure the fans like it because it's a rivalry. And I'll tell you this, wrestling at Parkersburg High School will be a festive event, because as a high school coach, both at Christiansburg and Grundy, I went to wrestle at Parkersburg, and they bring them out. Let me tell you, there'll be a lot of people there. Obviously having Jared Hawk being a Fort Parkersburg guy, it'll probably be more of a home match for Virginia Tech than West Virginia. But we expect a good crowd, and it's just fun to be able to compete.
So once we get exams done, we get done with Parkersburg. A little bit of a break before wrestling Princeton and Carolina to kick up the new year. Where are you thinking right now? I mean, going into the Virginia duels, is that the next peaking cycle? I mean, or is it peak for Vegas? Hopefully, hope that stays through West Virginia, and then lull and then peak. How are you working the training cycles here?
Well, we're gonna crank it up a notch here. We get like a 1 week training period now, and then we're gonna let everybody go home for about a week over Christmas. We've always done that, and then when we come back in the 26th, we'll hit it pretty hard until we go. We didn't try to Vegas wasn't an event we tried to peak for. We just kind of trained normally for that. The first part of the year is always an evaluation part of the year for us. So now we feel like we've evaluated, and now we know a little bit more specifically what we're going to do, and the workouts will change a little bit, and we'll train really hard from probably the 26th until about the 3rd, and then we'll rest and get ready for 2 big dual meets that weekend, and then we got a short turnaround from when we get back from North Carolina. I think on Sunday night late, we leave on Thursday morning for the Virginia Duels, and that's always a fun event. So we got a busy January. We're going every weekend in January, then we got the first weekend of February off. So that's part of the reason we're letting them go home for a while, is just because January is going to be tough. So we don't have our first week and a half when we get back from Christmas break is going to be our real kind of grinding time.
And, of course, that episode prior to the Virginia Duels will also give the Hokie faithful some information about socials and events in Hampton. So we'll just give you a little heads up on keep your ears peeled for something like that. Now, our final topic on this particular episode is one that it hit a lot of us really hard, and this is something to hit you as a coach who had an athlete, is the passing of former Hokie Cody Gardner earlier this week. And I don't think there's it's so weird to see all the posts now on Facebook and social media about Cody. And I think about what I remember from him, and him and his dad. And then, the bracket, I had his Beast of the East bracket for 10 years in my house, and joking with him. But, we lost Cody, and he was a guy you had been quoted at saying at the memorial service on December 6th that he was the best wrestler you ever coached in terms of, what did you mean by that? And what's it, how hard is this to lose a talent like Cody Gardner?
Well, I was fortunate in 18 years, Ada Grundy, Lieutenant Christopher, to coach some really good wrestlers. I mean, I had guys like Greg Stiltner at Grundy, and I probably better not start naming names. Shane Bowman like that, and then you get to Christiansburg and you got Matt Upperleys and the BJ Comptons and, all those kind of guys that, win all kinds of titles. And Devin Carter, I didn't have Devin, but, but Cody was the total package in terms of just a kid that loved the sport back then. Super athletic kid, super strong kid, could wrestle, as a big guy, wrestle like a little guy. And I mean, anytime you lose anybody, it's tough. It's unfortunately, I buried 3 or 4 of my wrestlers now, and that's not what you want to do. But, I feel bad for Keith and the family that got very close to the Gardner family, for the last 15 years. And Cody was just special. I mean, not only was he was a phenom wrestler. I mean, you don't win the Hodge and win the A6 Wrestler of the Year and win the Beast of the East 3 times and the Iron Man twice and the Powerade 3 times if you're not a freak. And he was a freak.
Some of the matches that I remember him most were against Jared Platt, who we lost earlier this year to complications of diabetes. And, you sit there and you look at the team, the good Lord above is putting together, man. I don't want to wrestle heavyweight if I'm heading upstairs anytime soon.
No, you don't. Nope. You want to stay away from heavyweight because, the Angels got the advantage up there, don't they, right now? Because, Platt and, Gardner, they used to have some wars. You got Blair and Christiansburg banging heads. So I'm glad they're looking down, hoping they're cheering for us. But it was just neat to see Cody's family, just hitting everything head on and really wanting to get a lot of wrestling people together, and that's what we were able to do Tuesday night at Christiansburg.
Yeah, and what's the lesson here? Obviously, we know it's been documented, or it's been reported that Cody He's had his issues with substance abuse, and then ultimately that led to his demise. And, I'm not making a pun here, but he did have his demons, so to speak. And what can be learned from, or what lesson can we take away from who Cody Gardner was as a person and his life, and then how tragically his life ended?
Well, I think the lesson is that, number one, Cody Gardner's human, and substance abuse, it's funny, kids, and it all starts somewhere. Kids think that they're invincible and they can go out and do this, try this, and I'm just going to do this one time. But, chemically, how you're made up, everybody reacts differently. And Cody Gardner was the guy that we reacted differently than most people that go out and maybe try something once or twice, and I think that's documented. And I think that, I know that Cody really, at the end, and even in the middle, you don't do all of the things and self-admit yourself into rehabs and take classes and do all that kind of stuff if you, number one, A, didn't realize you had a problem, and B, wanted to do something about it. And so that just shows you the power of making maybe that mistake when you're young, innocent mistake, human mistake, and then never being able to get out of it. And I think that's the lesson right there, is that, we all went through that probably stage of our life where we thought we were invincible, but as we found out with Cody, that invincible isn't reality.
What was your favorite Cody Gardner moment?
Well, Cody was just had such a dry sense of humor, and he was funny, and probably all of the moments when you're trying to get your team jacked up, and I mean, with Cody's teams, we were ranked the top 4, top 5 of the nation, the whole time Cody was there. He was a part of it. We had like multiple state champs on that team, and trying to get him fired up, and Coach Weber and myself giving him a one for the Gipper speech, and Cody would be back there goofing around, flicking somebody with a rubber band and snorting and giggling back there, because that was part, I think, of the mystique, and why Cody was another reason why he was so good, because he was so loose. He could literally joke around, and then about 3 or 4 minutes before game time, all of a sudden he snapped that game face on, and you were in for it. And even with the kids that he wrestled, because you get some mismatch in Southwest Virginia. Cody was never the kind of guy that was going to go pound a guy that was really wasn't, probably didn't have the right, or shouldn't have been stepping on him out with Cody Gardner just for fear of his life. Cody wasn't the kind of guy that would pound him in the ground, but when Cody had an opponent that was worthy, he could turn it up to the highest level. And so just the way he approached competing was the thing that I'll always remember about Cody. He was real loose. He was real cutting up, carrying on, carefree kind of guy. And I miss that just as much as I miss all the whoopings he handed out.
Yeah, there's 2 moments I think I remember the most about him, and one was, I believe, his freshman year at the Virginia Duels, and he was a light 215 pounder, because he was when he got to Christiansburg, and I remember he wrestled Dan Scanlon in an overtime match, might have been in the Super 32 or a preseason tournament, and Scanlon was a monster kid at Virginia at the time, and it went to overtime, and I'm like, who is this? I heard about it, I was like, wow. And then next thing you know, 171 is no longer an option, because this kid was growing. Goes 215, certifies at 89, and you guys are wrestling to Virginia Duels against Archbishop Moeller from Ohio.
I remember, yeah.
And he went out and, as a freshman, destroyed a returning Ohio State. I believe it was either returning champ or this kid won Ohio State's that year. I think it was 10-2 major decision. The photographer at the Daily Press where I worked at the time had the top down picture from the top of the Hampton Coliseum, and it's Cody just laying the wood to this guy. And it was just one of those things, like, that was the moment where I realized, okay, this guy is nationally relevant at this weight class as a freshman. Ultimately won that match. And then the other one was about this bracket story. And it's kind of not necessarily a great story, but at the Beast of the East, he beat Dan Getter from Penridge, in the finals. And it was one of I think they'd wrestled 2 weeks prior at the Powerade, right? And Getter had, I think, upset him, and then Cody wins. And the Delaware people know me, and they're like, hey, here, Gardner, Christiansburg left. You're from Virginia. You'll see him. So I toted this bracket around from when I lived in Virginia to Pennsylvania to Minnesota to Colorado back to Minnesota. That my little bracket is insignificant in this whole story, but that was my last connection. I figured it's time to send it back to its rightful owner.
Yeah. He was a special kid. Just, obviously he was a great wrestler. We'll probably never see another high school guy like that in our neck of the woods for a long, long time. But he's a great kid, and, I hope everybody can learn something from Cody's situation. And, there's people out there right now that are suffering and struggling like he is. And, I guess all I'd say is go do something about it. Go do something about it, because I know he sure tried at the end.
This show is part of the Matt Talk Podcast Network. For more wrestling podcasts, head over to MattTalkOnline.com.